All right, what's up my brothers? In this video we got another car review for you. I'm going to call this daily driven reviews because the way I'm handling this is they're giving me a car for a week. I use it as my daily driver. I don't drive any of my other cars. And I make a big list of pros and cons. So in this video I'm going to start with the pros and finish with the cons and give you a little bit of a summary at the end, give you an idea of what I thought of the car and who I think it should be for. Let's just dive straight into this. So this is a Tesla Model Y, the brand new one, the refresh one. My editor will put up some screens of the outside of the vehicle to give you an idea of what it looks like. It's pretty much the same as the last car as far as I can tell. They've updated the front end, the headlights, the fascia, and the rear end, the tail lights. There's no longer tail lights that are visible. It's more of like a reflective light. It just sort of like bounces off the paintwork and then you see the lighting that way. I'm not sure if I love it or not, if I'm being honest with you. Like the looks for me are just okay. I thought I would like it a lot more in person, but maybe because this is the long range all-wheel drive version. I asked the fellow that dropped off the car what the power rating on it was. He didn't have one. He said we don't usually like to rate these cars as far as power rating. He said it's something in the high 400s. I looked it up. It does 0 to 60 like low 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds probably. It's rapid. Anyway, let's get right into the pros and I'll give you some more details about this one. So this one's loaded, obviously. It's a fleet car or a press car, so it's got full self-driving and whatever else that they would put in something like this. I guess the bigger wheels, you know, the 20-inch wheels instead of the 19s. The pro list is pretty comprehensive. Full self-driving avoids speed bumps now, which is interesting because speed bumps are kind of annoying and you'd probably want to take control of driving the car with speed bumps, but in this case it tends to put one wheel into the rut and try to avoid going over it with both wheels, which is nice. It notices when they're there as long as there's white paint on the top. So FSD has gotten better in my opinion. The next pro I've got is the sound system. I wrote down good at first, but I crossed it out and put down great. It's a really good sound system. They've improved it significantly over the one that I heard in the Model S. I think the car is also quieter too, which adds to it, but the highs are high, the lows are low. There's a little more punch in the bass. Good improvement in the sound system. Not exactly sure what changes they made, but from an audiophile's perspective, as a guy that spent a lot of time working stereo stores in my youth, I can tell you it's a very good sound system. I have no complaints about it whatsoever. The interior is nice and quiet. They improved the insulation, you know, if I can put it that way. I know the windows are double planed. The guy pointed that out to me when he gave me the car, and I believe they increase the amount of insulation that's in the car as well too. So the cabin, it's relatively quiet. It's a pleasant, quiet place to be if that's what you like. Turn signal stock is back. Yay. You know, they took it away. It was one of my big complaints in the Model S Plaid is you'd have to push buttons on here to go left and right. See, look, you can see the steering wheel is really annoying. It just kind of disappears out your hand because the top's not there, and I got to push a stupid button over here to turn left. Now you have the turn signal stock back, which is a nice addition. I'll get to the cons in a little bit when it comes to the layout, but I'm just glad that the turn signal's back and I don't have to fiddle around looking, oh, I got to turn left over here, and oh, right, okay. It's just automatic, right? It just happens. The other great thing too is I use the EMF meter on the car the same one I use on the other one, and this car throws off almost no EMF. So I don't know if it's unique to the Plaid models in the Tesla lineup where they're very dirty, they throw off a lot of EMF. I'll have my editor put up on the screen right now what the readings were that we're getting, but they were very low, very nominal, almost insignificant in my opinion. I would not be worried about buying one of these cars and sitting in it for days, months, weeks on end. You're going to get very little EMF exposure. In fact, I think my Audi SUV throws off more EMF, probably the wiring or their heated seats or whatever. I don't know if they use a Faraday cage or silver lining or something like this in the Teslas, but it doesn't throw off much EMF at all. Much better than the Plaid S, if I can put it that way. Huge center storage box. Because this is a tall car, I wouldn't call it an SUV. They call it an SUV. It's a 5-seater, but because it's a taller car, you've got a lot more storage space down over here, which is really, really nice. It's huge. I can put my entire GoPro box in here. I could probably put 4 of these in here if I'm being honest. There's a lot of space down in here as well. 2 great cup holders, door storage. Again, there's still no button on the glove box, but I figured this out because I read the comments in the last video. You push the mic button and say open glove box, and the glove box will open, although I'd rather have a button. But lots and lots of storage in this car. You won't be worried about whether or not you can put stuff in here. The one pedal driving is very well calibrated. In this vehicle, on the dynamics tab, you have deceleration reduced and standard. On the Plaid, it was just standard. You didn't have options. I just ran it in the standard mode, which is pretty aggressive. It's almost like the car is applying the brakes, but it's not. It's recovering energy from the momentum. So one pedal driving on this car, also very, very good. I noticed the brake light comes on as it displays it over here in this screen when you're decelerating with a standard mode. So it lets people know behind you that you're slowing down because it is pretty aggressive. It feels like you're applying the brakes, but you're not. Like, that's how much energy the car is able to recover on the deceleration mode of the car which is pretty significant. So I'm sure it adds something to the battery life. I don't know exactly what it is. It doesn't tell you anything on the screen. That would kind of be useful, Tesla engineers, if you could tell us how much energy was recovered with the deceleration. But it's a very well calibrated system. I really liked it. On the Pro side, I also wrote down decent interior. Integrated vents look clean. You don't see any vents in the dashboard. They're actually integrated right here in front of you and in front of the passenger as well. They're very well hidden. If you like a nice, like, clean IKEA kind of look, this car is probably for you. Next Pro, FSD, the full self-driving aspect of the vehicle, which is pretty expensive, by the way. I noticed it's about an $8,000 option on the Canadian website, but it's really good at maneuvering around traffic. So let me put it this way. If you're driving down a side street with lots of cars parked on the side of the road on either side, it does a very, very good job of maneuvering the car through that area nice and cleanly. It's quite impressive from that aspect. FSD in hurry mode drives like a human, which I drive, I'm not going to say aggressively, but I drive generally quicker, more focused than the average driver. So again, in the settings for the autopilot, you can go full self-driving supervised profile, chill, standard, and hurry. Exact same thing in the Plaid. Standard kind of just stays in the same lane most of the time. Chill is more like on the slow lane on the highway. Hurry does a lot of lane changes. I would describe it as pretty aggressive for an AI or for a computer. It drives very close to the way that I would drive if I wanted to get somewhere. So I found myself using the hurry mode more just because it sort of drove more like I did, whereas a chill I found was kind of boring. I'd want to sleep, you know, fall into a coma and pass out. But it drives impressively like a human when you have it in the hurry mode. It's very darty. Even though it's not the performance trim, it still gets through traffic very, very quick. So again, electric motors, all the torque's available from 0 RPM. You put your foot down, immediate acceleration. You don't really need the performance trim, if I'm being honest, if you're using it as an appliance like a daily driver. I think you'd be fine with all-wheel drive, long-range mode. But if you like something faster, get the performance. This isn't a performance vehicle, you know, if I can put it that way. I'll sum it up in my final thoughts, you know, towards the end. Heated steering wheel and seat is automatic when you get in the car. I didn't notice that in the Plaid S, but in this one I did notice it. I don't know if they've recalibrated it or changed it, but in the climate control system, I noticed as soon as I get in the car and lock it and I put the key, again, this is a fleet vehicle, so they gave me the key. As soon as I put it down there and I go to the climate, it's already on. So the seat's already heating up. It's automatic. The steering wheel is heating up. It works very, very quickly. And the last thing I got here for the Pro mode, which I didn't really even think I would even use this, but dog mode is great for groceries. It's a hotter sunny day. The sun's heating up the cabin. You want to stop by Five Guys and grab a burger. You're not too worried about the ice cream melting in the back of the car in the trunk. They have this mode on the screen called dog mode. Actually, you don't even have to go to the screen. I can just go here to the mic and say activate dog mode and it'll turn it on, and I found that it works very, very well. And what it does is it keeps the cabin at a consistent temperature that you set. So if you want it at 19 degrees Celsius, you can set it, lock up the car, go get your burger, go out and have dinner for an hour, hour and a half or something like that, and come back and the cabin is still chilled. So you don't have to worry about your groceries deteriorating or melting, anything like that. I don't have dogs, but I think that it's a pretty cool feature that you can use for more than one thing. All right, let's get to the cons, because this is where stuff gets a little bit nasty. Okay, so the first thing I've got on the con list is we've got the signal doesn't see the lanes properly. In most cars, like in my German cars, for example, you can push the signal down sort of like halfway, and it only signals while you're making the lane change. Like you get usually 3 clicks and then it stops. Or you push it down all the way and then it stays locked until you complete the turn, and then you move the steering wheel back to its original position. In this car, you only have one mode. You just push it down to go left and up to go right. You don't have like a halfway point like they have in a lot of the German cars. So what I'm assuming is that the AI or the cameras determine or try to figure out whether or not you're making a left turn or a right turn, or you're just changing lanes. And it only gets it right about half of the time. So it's kind of annoying. Like you sometimes find yourself in a situation where you want to make a right at the next stoplight, and then what ends up happening is it just ticks like 2 or 3 times and it stops. It doesn't keep ticking until you've made the lane change, which is kind of annoying. Not a huge deal. Why does Tesla always have to try to reinvent certain things that are already done perfectly? Turn signals have already been mastered. You don't need to let an AI try to figure things out. I think it's far, far better when certain things work, like round steering wheels instead of yokes, like we talked about last time. Thank God that steering wheel is back in this car. But that's just something that doesn't need to be over-engineered or overcomplicated. We have a good system that works. I think Tesla just goes too far in certain areas, and I've said that before. I'm not going to bang on that drum too much. There's no center dash display here in front of me. You just have the big iPad, you know, I guess is the way to describe it. It works. I don't love it. They have the speedometer kind of in the top left. Like all your main stuff is in the top left. Like if I put myself on the throttle right now, I've got the gear that I'm in, and then it sort of gives me like the speed, the max speed, your charge percentage. All the main stuff you need is in the top left. So it's reasonably close to your field of view. It's not center. There's no heads-up display. So it's not where you're comfortably used to it. It's still in a reasonable good spot. It's not the best layout, if I can be honest with you. Just give me a little screen. It doesn't have to be big. Just give me a little something here in front of the steering wheel that's got speed, outside temperature, battery charge, range, like all the main stuff, like the stuff that sort of matters. I don't want to have to like try to find it in certain areas of this main center console screen, because traditionally we're accustomed to HVAC is in here, your entertainment, your navigation, like all of those things are generally off to the right or in the center, and over here is where you get your main data for your speed, the speed limit, you know, if your turn signal's on or off or not, how much range you have in the vehicle. I just think it's a better layout. I don't love it. I think it could be better, but I understand the design architecture or the design language for Tesla for the most part seems to be clean, minimalist, and uncluttered. Fine. I don't love it though. Con, the steering wheel stitching is awful. I'm going to be very clear though. The leather is nice. It feels nice to the touch. The steering wheel diameter and size feels good to the touch and in the hand. But the way that, again, Tesla does things is they try to re-engineer and reinvent things that don't need to be changed or fixed. Let me explain. German cars, I noticed this first with BMW M's, you know, for example. I had a few M3s and an M5, and the way they stitch the steering wheel is they put the stitching on the inside of the wheel, kind of on the inside part here and here. Whereas with Tesla, what they've done is, because I think anyway, they're trying to have a minimalist visual design, they don't want you to see stitching, so they stitch the wheel on the back of the wheel, which you'd think would be a good idea because it does look nice in appearance. It's a clean appearance. The way BMW sort of makes it look good is they use the BMW M stitching with the red-blue mix on the inside, so it does look good. But when you have your hand on the wheel and you're driving it, your fingertips, like your finger pads, this part of your finger, which is the most sensitive part of your hand, that's how we were designed, lands on the stitching, which is very rough and coarse and uncomfortable. So when you're driving the car, it's like, it doesn't feel good. And I've noticed with the German cars, the way they stitch them on the inside of the wheel, you never really touch that with the pad of your finger. So not a huge deal. It's not a deal breaker. And I would imagine most people that get these cars equipped with full self-driving anyway, they probably don't drive or touch the steering wheel that much anyway. So, I mean, I've never heard anybody mention it or complain about it, but it's just something that I noticed and I didn't think was a great design element of the car. They could probably take a note or a page out of the German engineers design school and fix that. Seats aren't the greatest. They actually look pretty good. Like when you look at them, they look well bolstered on the side. I don't think they're real leather. I would imagine they're probably like pleatherish if I'm not mistaken, but they look decent. They're ventilated in the center, so you can run the AC in the summertime, which is great. Visually, they're good looking seats, but when you get your butt in them, they're not. They feel very unsupportive. The lumbar support doesn't really do much. You know, if I'm being honest, you don't really notice it that much. The side bolsters, even though they're there, and I'm not a wide guy by any stretch of the imagination around the waist, it just feels like they're lacking as far as in the comfort department. And again, I'm going to raise the same grievance that I did before in the Plaid S. There should be thigh extenders for these. If you're over 6 foot tall and you're used to driving German cars that have thigh extenders in them, you are going to miss them because the seat basically ends right about, I'm going to say, a third of the way down my leg. So 2/3 of my leg is not even supported by the seat at all. Not the worst thing in the world. It could be a lot worse, but a small touch like that, like the stitching on the inside and the thigh extenders, those things make a world of difference for comfort for guys like me that are used to them. Auto wipers suck is my next point. So rain sensing wipers are kind of the norm in the car world today, and they work great in my Porsche. They activate when they're supposed to. When the rain gets more intense, they go faster. When the rain lightens up and goes to a mist, they slow down. When the rain stops, they stop wiping. I found myself having to push the wiper button, there it goes, quite a bit in this car because the wipers weren't activating when you would expect the windshield to clean itself. That was the biggest problem. It's not that they wouldn't stop activating, it's just that they wouldn't activate in times when the windshield was covered in water and you had some difficulty seeing through it. So I'm not really sure if that's just a calibration issue or a software issue, but they didn't work very well. Rear visibility sucks bad. I put that down. Actually sucks bad. I've seen these on the road many a time. I've never driven one, never been in a Model Y before. And if I'm being absolutely honest, that window back there, as I look at it in this mirror, is way too small for an SUV. To give you some perspective, and I'm going to send a picture to my editor to put up on the screen, the back window in my Porsche Spyder RS, it looks visually small from the outside of the car, but for context, it gives me a better field of view when I look in the rearview mirror back out. Maybe it's because it's closer and it's a better design setup, but I can see a lot more in that car, which I shouldn't because it's such a small window. But because this window is so angled, it's such a flat slope in the back, I'm assuming for mileage and for economy and a slice through the wing for drag coefficient, you don't get much of a rear view out the window. They should have extended the bottom part of the Model Y at least another 6 to 12 inches lower, if I'm being honest. And that would have given you a lot more visibility, because as I sit here and the mirror is lined up to the top of the windshield, this mirror here could be cut in half and it wouldn't make a difference because you're not using the bottom half of the mirror to see anything. That's how visually insignificant that back window is at that slope, which, you can run cameras. Like I know there's a camera button here and you can run the camera all the time and put on like the rear camera. Oh, there's a squirter for the camera. That's a nice feature. I just hit that. Good one, Tesla. But as far as it goes looking back there, the visibility sucks. Another con I jotted down here is this shouldn't be called an SUV. This is really just a tall car. It looks like a Model 3 was sort of like elongated vertically, if I can put it that way. When I get in and out of it, I mentioned in the Model S, I found myself having to push my head under this pillar over here, which I don't find myself doing because of the height of the car, but it's still not SUV height. Like, I find with my Audi SUV, like I can just sort of open the door and just sort of like waft into it nicely. It's almost at the exact height that you'd want. Whereas this one, I find myself kind of like walking it and then sort of down into it. So I wouldn't call it an SUV. It's more of a tall car. It's not a huge deal breaker, but it really shouldn't be marketed as an SUV type of product because I don't think it is. It doesn't really meet that requirement of what I think anyway, where you sort of just like ease into the car very, very simply and not have to worry about contorting into it. Whereas this, there's some contortion that's required for a guy that my height. And again, I'm not that tall, I'm only 6'2". Ride is okay. I didn't really have any great things to say about the ride. It's just a spring setup. There's no air suspension, a little bit crashy. I think Tesla can probably do a better job calibrating the suspension to road conditions. The Model S with the air suspension was better, but not by a massive margin. Now, a con that I jotted down about the FSD, the full self-driving, is that it is dangerous. So here in Canada on the 400 series highways, we always have construction going on. And in construction zones, they lower the speed limit to 80. So what ends up happening is you'll be cruising down the highway, the speed limit's 100 kilometers an hour or 110. Most people are doing $115, $120. Flow of traffic's going nice, and then there'll be a sign up for 80 kilometers an hour because it's a construction zone. But there's no construction. They've either completed it or it happens at night and they move barriers in, but all the lanes are available. All the cars continue to travel at the same speed that they were traveling at. If they were doing a $120, they remain doing a $120 in an 80 zone. The full self-driving identifies the 80 kilometer an hour zone and goes, whoa, and it basically throws on the brakes and chucks an anchor out the back and slows you right down. On more than one occasion, I was like, I was doing stuff like this and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I realized the FSD was up to no good. And I almost had a guy rear end me because the car so aggressively slowed down to try to meet the new speed limit that it could have caused an accident. You got to be really, really careful with FSD. Tesla, you guys got to do a way better job. You need to calibrate the cameras to measure flow of traffic, because if the flow of traffic's doing a $120, even if the sign says 80, the car needs to keep doing the flow of traffic, because you slam on the brakes or you regenerate energy or whatever it is the car's doing to slow down so aggressively. The guy behind you, if he's not paying attention and he's not that far away from your bumper, could smack right into you and bang, you got a car accident. And who are you going to blame for that? Can you sue Tesla? Who do you blame for the car aggressively braking so hard that somebody could potentially hit you from behind? You got to be really, really careful with this system, because while it's very good, it is still not close to perfect yet. They still have to calibrate a lot to it. Pre-collision warning is really annoying. It goes off quite a lot. So if you're driving the car, FSD is off, obviously, and you're moving kind of in a hurry mode. I'm going to do that, quote unquote, through traffic. Anytime a car in front of you gets on the brakes and is about to make a turn, and you as a human have an ability, I've been driving for a long time, obviously, but you as a human have the ability to sort of sense the distance and know that as he's turning, yeah, the gap will probably close, but there's more than enough gap there for you to proceed or make a lane change at the last second if you need to, because there's nobody over here, and sort of maneuver around it. But what ends up happening is you get pre-collision warning a lot driving in what I would define as a hurry mode or not a chill mode. You're going to get that a lot, which is really annoying because, again, you know, the car will auto brake, it blinks all this red shit and bong, bong, bong and all this sort of stuff, and it gets, you know, it kind of gets in your face. The next note I have about FSD is that it really sucks at stop signs. If you get in a situation where you're at a four-way stop and there's traffic at all four stop signs, it just can't decide whether it's your turn or not. There's a few times where I found myself in a situation where I wasn't touching this. I'm basically sitting like this and I'm trying not to look like a pleb to the other drivers, and the car will come to a stop, and then it rolls, you know, your head kind of goes back, and then it slams on the brake because it's not sure if it's safe to go, and then it rolls again, and it's like you're going through this motion of this and that 1 to 2 times at almost every four-way stop where there's traffic. It's just like, come on guys, like calibrate this thing better. I understand that it might struggle to establish who's got the right of way, or maybe there's a dangerous, you know, situation, but it's not smooth, it's not comfortable. In situations where there's four-way stops and there's traffic, you're better off driving the car yourself. Another con I put down here is, I mean, look, I like cool cars. This is not a cool car. I said that the car needs to be cooler. Some kind of an RPM gauge is missing to add some life to this to make it feel less like an appliance. As I mentioned earlier, it's kind of an appliance. It's like a microwave oven. It does its stuff. It does it very well. It's very effective in most areas, but you're really not going to brag about it to anybody, although I've seen a lot of Tesla people brag about it. But why doesn't it have something interesting like an RPM gauge? The electric motors will turn in revolutions per minute. Why not give me some indication of how many RPMs, you know, the electric motors are turning, whether it's the front and back or a combination of them or to separate them? That's not that big of a deal to sort of like integrate into a center console. So again, you know, range, outside temperature, turn signal indicator, speed limit, and maybe some kind of an RPM gauge. Just make it interesting. Like, make it look and sort of behave more like a conventional car, because I think some of the bigger hesitancies for people that are considering an electric car or a Tesla, for example, is the conventional cars that they know, love, and trust, and have done for a long time. It just doesn't look and feel like that. I've seen the Hyundai Ioniq N, I think it's called, and they have like an integrated RPM gauge. I mean, the speakers will make sound like sort of thing. It's kind of interesting. Whereas this, you get no center console, you just get, you know, your speed limit, and it's very sanitary. Like, there's nothing offensive about it, but there's nothing exciting about it either. And I think that they could make these things a little bit more exciting. I also made a note of the emergency braking happening during the streets or city traffic as well. So not just on the highway when the speed limit drops, but I also saw it a few times when I was sort of driving on the roads. Again, you get the collision warning and or the brakes, but some combination of that can be very frustrating when it's not an unsafe scenario. It's kind of a hurry scenario, using your better judgment, and you're clear. I couldn't find somewhere here in the menu, like I looked in the menu under safety, camera-based detection, sentry mode, dash cam clips. Like, I didn't see anything here to sort of adjust the dynamics. Maybe in the dynamics it's got something as far, oh yeah, okay, so here it is. So in this display over here, you've got collision warning for early, medium, and late sort of thing. So I suppose you can sort of change it around, but the default setting in the fleet mode kind of leaves everything to default, but it is kind of frustrating, you know what I'm saying? Another con I got is Tesla uses its own home-based screen. Okay, this is all Tesla. There's no Android Auto, there's no CarPlay as far as I was aware. I messaged the guy on my phone. I said, hey, I've got an Android. Can I get Waze on this? And he said, no, you can't get Waze on it. So all I can really do, and you know, it's interesting because the car charger's down here and the top half of the phone is kind of, you can't really see it. So you couldn't run Waze down there on the charger. So you'd have to probably mount your phone, I don't know, somewhere here, hanging off. You can't hang it here because it's going to block the screen. So somewhere up over here, I've seen people clip them sort of the side of this screen. So you could technically run Waze on your phone, but why would you want that? I mean, you got this big ass screen over here. Give me Android Auto so I can hit Waze, or integrate it into the Tesla system, because you've got Spotify integrated, you got YouTube Music, you got karaoke. I don't know why you would use karaoke in a car. Amazon Music. You've got all these other apps integrated, so why can't we get Waze in here? If you're a petrol head or anybody that drives in a hurry mode ever. You want to know where the speed cameras are. You want to know if a cop's been marked somewhere, if there's an accident or whatever. I would rather have Tesla integrated in here, but they haven't done it, and as far as I can tell, they have no plans to do it. So if you like using apps like Waze in the native navigation or in the native screens over here, you're out of luck, buddy. You're going to have to clip your phone old-fashioned way somewhere on the dashboard and get the data that way. I mentioned is it's really, really simple looking in here. Again, I've mentioned this before. It just doesn't really look that exciting. I wish they would amp it up a little bit more.
I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on it, on the looks, because it's kind of polarizing. I mean, this is the new one. They've updated it, given it new back ends. Take a poll. You guys tell me, is this a good looking car or not? Is this an attractive car or not? You guys tell me what you all think. Let's have a quick look around. The front end's been redesigned to look like this now.
And finally, for most cars with the blind spot detection, you have something integrated into the mirrors. And I like it in the mirrors a lot better than the way Tesla's designed it. One, you have to look at the mirror anyway. So that's what you're looking at, and that's where you want to find out if you're clear to make the lane change. I know that when you put on the signal, you get a little window up over here that the camera over your shoulder shows you what's over your shoulder. I don't care. I'm not going to use that. I know that some people might want to rely on that, but I'm a motorcyclist. I've always done a shoulder check, or I've always looked in the mirror. So a combination of those things will always exist for me. I want the blind spot detection in the mirror because that's where I'm looking. The second thing is when you're another car driving through somebody's blind spot, you can often see the mirror light up and indicate to the driver that there's somebody in the blind spot, giving you some level of assurance that the driver of the other car has been notified of your position in their blind spot, warning them not to drive into you, sort of thing. So I think that's a far, far better execution of the blind spot monitoring system. The way Tesla has it is they have a tiny little light. I think this is a speaker over here in this column. They have a tiny little red light integrated into this little speaker area, which isn't invisible. If you ever see those like laser dots you use on cats to like wig them out and sort of put the stuff on the wall and they're jumping all over the place, that's the size of it. It's a tiny little red light. And while it's pretty well visible at nighttime, it's not as visible during the day. And again, it's in the wrong spot. It should be in the mirror. I think the engineer should have done a better job with that. So that's a pretty comprehensive list of the pros and cons of the Tesla Model Y. Let's go for a drive and I'll give you my final thoughts on it. All right, so final thoughts on the Tesla Model Y. It's driving me right now. It works pretty good. So the way that I would put it to you guys is if you want a cheap and expensive appliance that's going to get you from A to B very reliably with minimal to no maintenance. I mean, there's no oil changes, there's no coolant changes, there's no transmission changes, probably no differential changes. The extent of maintenance on a car like this is going to be charging it, maybe your summer winter tire swaps, and I don't know what else do you need. The interesting thing about Teslas is there's a culture about them. So I went to a Lamborghini opening for the Temerario, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and at that Lamborghini launch, like I'm basically going to look at a $700,000 spec supercar with a buddy of mine that's placing an order, and the sales guy sees me pull up in this thing because, you know, Tesla gave this for me, and, you know, my plan is always just drive it straight for a week, don't drive my other car. So I pull up at the Lamborghini dealership in this thing, pull up, go inside. Dude goes, "Oh, that's a new Model Y." He goes, "I've got the Model 3, it's my daily driver, I love it, it's got 200,000 kilometers on it, there's no maintenance, blah blah blah, it's the best car ever." You know, here you can see a problem with the stop and go because there's people walking across the street and the car couldn't figure out whose turn it was. And he's like, you know, cost me nothing to maintain. I haven't even done the brakes. It's got 198,000 kilometers. I haven't even done the brakes once because you don't use them because of regen. They get very excited about these cars. And it's like, dude, you're a Lamborghini salesman and you're about to show me like your brand new, well, it's not the flagship, but your brand new like Lambo with a hybrid system and like 900 plus horsepower. And you're raving about an appliance, an electric appliance that you use to get around. And he's a car enthusiast. This guy organizes rallies. He's got some fast cars that he owns. He obviously sells fast cars for a living. I just found it really interesting that guys like that will often really indulge in the culture and the Tesla sort of notion. Like I said, it's an appliance. Not expensive to run, not that expensive to buy. It works. You get the equivalent of 3 times the fuel economy of an internal combustion car. So if you want exciting, buy a Porsche, buy a Lamborghini, buy a McLaren, buy something that's going to light you up. If you want to pile miles onto something, put it in a parking lot, not care if somebody dings the door, not worry about somebody wanting to steal it out of your driveway. I don't know a single person that's had a Tesla stolen out of the driveway. People are stealing Mercedes, Range Rover. A buddy of mine had his Ferrari stolen right out of his driveway, right in front of his house. I don't think people steal these cars, so I would imagine the insurance would be very cheap and inexpensive. It's simple to run. Like, what more is there to say? I think it would make your internal combustion cars more exciting to drive too, because if this is your daily driver and this is how you get around, it would probably make, when you get in your Ferrari or your Porsche, make it feel that much better. So yeah, I mean, that's what it is in my opinion. It's a reliable appliance that just works, that doesn't cost much to maintain and run, that isn't that exciting, that happens to be an electric car. Go for it if you like it. I'm probably going to get there one day. I do like this because this lets a lot of light in, although I wish it would pop open and give you a little bit of open top sort of feel. But for what I do in cars where I want a quiet environment and a lot of light, this is actually not a bad vehicle for recording videos in, although not as exciting. You probably think that the Porsches or the other cars with the loud exhaust sound way better. All right, guys, you let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. See you guys in the next video. Peace out.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.